Hello everyone, Alan Sens here, and welcome to this segment on nuclear testing overview. In this segment, we're going to look at the history of nuclear testing. So let's get started. By the time we're done, you should be able to describe the scale and scope of nuclear weapons testing from 1945 to today. Now, right off the bat, we've got a bit of a problem. How do you count nuclear tests? Now, on the face of it, this ought to be easy, right? A nuclear explosion goes off and you count it as a test, but there's a couple of problems with that. The first is, do you count a test that failed? So if a country attempts to test, but there's actually no explosion, do you count that as a nuclear test? I mean, the motive is there, right? But nothing happened, so does that count? Another possibility is countries might test nuclear weapons in what are called subcritical tests. And these are tests where you test everything right up to the point where you get fission. So there's no explosion. But again, the motive is there, right? To test the bomb. So do you count that? And generally speaking, what we do is we count only the explosions. We don't count the failed tests, and we don't count subcritical tests. Okay, let's have a look at some of the big numbers. Between 1945 and 2017, there were approximately 2,056 nuclear explosions detonated around the world. That's a lot, and people are very surprised, usually, when that number is brought up. Since 1998, there have been 10 explosions, and since 2000, there have been 6. All of those have been by North Korea. Of the tests conducted between 1945 and 2017, approximately 528 of them, about 25%, have been detonated in the atmosphere. On average, between 1945 and 1996, there was one nuclear test every 9 days for 5 decades. If we break that down still further, from 1955 to 1989, the average number of nuclear tests conducted every year was 55. The year 1962, saw 178 tests. 96 conducted by the United States and 79 by the Soviet Union. That's just crazy, right? 178 tests in 1 year. The largest nuclear weapon ever tested was the Soviet Tsar Bomba test at Novaya Zemlya on October 30th, 1961. That test had the largest yield yet seen, somewhere between 50 to 58 megatons. Between 1945 and 2017, over 60 different locations around the world were used as test sites. Okay, what this chart shows us is basically the history, the record, if you like, of nuclear weapons testing. So we have the country here up at the top, the date of the first test, the date of the last test, and the total number of tests. And just walk our way through it. We see the United States here, first test in 1945, a total of 1,032 tests. Soviet Union, first test in 49 for a total of 715. That includes the Russian now, today, of course. So if they were to test again, we would count that as part of the Soviet Union-Russia totals. United Kingdom, 1952, for a total of 45. France, first test 1960, total of 210. China, first test 1964, 45 in total. Then we come to India in 74. Now, this explosion they called a peaceful nuclear device, or a peaceful nuclear explosion. I don't think anyone was fooled by that, but that's what they called it. But we counted it as a test anyway, and then they tested again twice in 1998 for a total of 3. Pakistan tested twice in 1998, a total of 2. And then we have North Korea, 2006, 2009, 2013, 2 tests in 2016, a test in 2017, for a total to this point of 6. And then we have these two, Israel and South Africa. And you can see I've said maybe, and I'll get back to that in just a moment. This chart just gives us a graphic representation of the different ways in which you can test in the atmosphere, in near space, underground, and at sea. And we'll take a look at the numbers for that approximately, the pattern, historical pattern for those types of tests in just a moment. This chart gives us a bit of a historical timeline to nuclear testing. We can see here, we start with 1945, and we kind of just stretch out here to 2018. Here's the total number of tests per year here. And we can see the total numbers and that big bulge, right, 62, and then we get that flurry of testing during the Cold War. And we can see the countries involved, the United States in blue, France in gray, Soviet Union red, People's Republic of China in yellow, United Kingdom in kind of this pinky color, India is orange, Pakistan's green, so there's a couple of tests there, 98, and then of course we have North Korea in the more recent timeline here. This chart just shows the big switch or change that took place after the Partial Test Ban Treaty. And the whole idea here is that atmospheric testing was very prevalent before the Test Ban Treaty, and then realization set in about the effects of radiation, and that these tests in the atmosphere were spreading radiation around the world. And so that led to the Partial Test Ban Treaty and the movement of the vast majority of tests underground. You can see some countries did continue to test above ground even after the Partial Test Ban Treaty, France most notably, but then France even started to move its tests underground. That's this blue bar here. So you can see that basically all tests recently have been underground, including the North Korean tests. Okay, what about these two South African, Israeli, maybe situations? So the pair of countries is believed to have conducted a clandestine, secret nuclear test in 1979. This is called the Vela incident. And it's called the Vela incident because it's a matter of record that a United States Vela satellite picked up a bright flash in the Earth's atmosphere in 1979. And that bright flash took place right here, just off the Prince Edward Islands in the ocean off Africa. Now, that's Prince Edward Island, not Prince Edward Island, Canada. And the bright flash, it is believed by certainly the United States intelligence community to have been a joint Israeli and South African nuclear test. And this incident actually is a really good piece of evidence for why we need a robust global verification regime. The fact that someone could test clandestinely is very worrying in terms of nuclear proliferation and the spread of nuclear weapons around the world generally. So, by now, you should be able to describe the scale and scope of nuclear weapons testing from 1945 to today. Okay, so those numbers are pretty big. We have conversations with people about nuclear weapons and say, well, how many tests were done anyway? You say, well, 2,056. They're like, it's just this enormous shock. So it's an important part of our subject and you should have a pretty good sense of these general numbers for the rest of the course. They're going to be very important for us because testing is, after all, such a fundamental part of the arms control effort surrounding nuclear weapons generally. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you again soon.